Well, Don Lemon is back on the air at CNN following his controversial comments about when a woman, specifically 2024 presidential candidate Nikki Haley, is not in her prime. Lemon took a brief hiatus from CNN and apologized for his comments. However, TMZ reports that CNN management informed Lemon that he is a strike away from getting the boot permanently, and that this was his final warning. CNN CEO Chris Licht reportedly described the comments as unacceptable during an editorial meeting. And of course, that's not, the only controversy involving Don Lemon. There was some reporting that, off camera, behind the scenes, although in front of the staff, he yelled at Caitlin Collins. There was an interview that really, I thought, reflected terrible journalism judgment on Don Lemon's part, where Caitlin Collins did a great interview with Representative James Comer, Republican, who's going to handle some of the investigations into Hunter Biden, et cetera. And it was a hard-hitting interview, and then it cut back to Don Lemon and Poppy Harlow, and Poppy Harlow tried to say, "Oh, good reporting, Caitlin Collins," and Don Lemon cut her off to indict the entire idea that they would dare or even bother to interview a Republican, because Republicans are spreading so much misinformation or something like that. It was a very telling moment, and it showed how perhaps he's getting in the way of people at CNN who are trying to do real journalism. And then there was the hilarious Nikki Haley comment, which I don't know if you took any special offense to that, Batya. Me and Brianna had a lot of fun chatting about it. What were your thoughts?
I definitely am not emotionally invested in whether Don Lemon thinks that I'm in my prime. But I will say, I agree with you. The problem is so much deeper than that one moment. That one moment was hilarious because Don Lemon frequently disparages women, but he's very careful to usually say white women, right? Or cisgendered women, right? Or Republican women, or, women who vote for Trump, right? There's all sorts of groups of women that you're allowed to disparage with impunity in the liberal media, but he forgot the qualifier, right? And so he insulted just all women, which also included the women you're not allowed to insult, who are, women like his co-hosts, who he just insulted to their faces. I mean, just really, 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 from a human point of view, I mean, how do you do that? I guess if you're used to yelling at people, then that's okay. And I think, the saddest part is that they didn't feel like they could push back against him because he's such a dominating personality on the show.
A little. They pushed back.
Very, very gently. I mean, and I think that's probably why Poppy Harlow why she took it so personally, because she was so humiliated by the whole situation, and the pushback was so gentle, I think, because of his outbursts before.
Well, I think they didn't want to look like, I think they didn't want to look like they were being emotional, or, because he was making a stereotype about women, they didn't then want to play into a negative women stereotype to be all offended about. I thought they handled it really as best they could. It was such an awkward position he put them in. And also in the service of, it didn't make any sense, because obviously, sure, Nikki Haley is past her birthing years, but that has nothing to do with whether or not she could be president, and is so fundamentally different from whether Joe Biden is capable of being president at his advanced age, when we have concerns about his mental awareness and that kind of thing. And he was equating those two, which made no sense.
No, absolutely. The comment made no sense. Google, what do you Google to find out that a woman is not in her prime when she's in her 50s? Nikki Haley, of all women, is clearly in her prime. She's clearly reaching that, that exact place where she sort of feels like she's supposed to be. And, she's the perfect person to have a debate on the issues with, because she's not too old, she's not crazy, she's, dignified person and is wrong about everything. So she's the perfect candidate for both Republicans and Democrats, because, there's nothing to debate but the issues. So of course, they have to go for her gender or what have you. Or, there's been some very racist reporting about, coming out of the left, right? About her, not using her, having a nickname, Nikki, and so forth. I think the problem is, I don't know, I've been watching the show since it started. This last week when he came back, there's no chemistry between the hosts. they all broadly agree on the issues and clearly don't get along, which is the worst combination. What you want is people who disagree on the issues who really like each other. That's the magic ingredient that makes a show like The Five one of the most shows, not just on Fox, but on all of cable. It's like that magic ingredient of having people who like each other but who don't agree. That is what the American people want. They want to see the options, they want to see what people believe, and they want people who kind of genuinely get along. Like, on this show, for example, you and Brianna deeply disagree but respect each other and want to hear what the other one has to say. And I keep waiting for CNN to find its way back to that, give people an option instead of having always every person at that channel agree on all of the issues. I mean, it's so tedious and then that even brings out the clash in personalities even more, right? Because they agree about all the issues.
Yeah. Dislike each other but agree has to be the worst combination of all, right? Maybe dislike each other and disagree can be, it's like watching WrestleMania or something.
Yeah.
But no, you're absolutely right about the situation. Yeah, there's just not enough. I mean, well, who wants to watch, right, people who don't really agree, and then one of the hosts is trying to knock down the central point of watching a news show, which is, to discuss the news, and he's saying we shouldn't do interviews like this, or what world are we in that we have to actually interview Republicans? I just think it reflects on his sensibilities so poorly. Obviously, we've beaten up on him a lot. I think from a business standpoint, Chris Licht, I believe that he'd be close to getting rid of Don Lemon because he has signaled that he wants to move away from he wants to move CNN away from being perceived as as partisan and as liberal as an MSNBC, or to be just being a kind of partisan outlet. He doesn't want it to be perceived that way, and I have to think Don Lemon keeps making that task more difficult. I don't know if that's a good business decision, but it certainly clashes with the business direction that CNN's new leadership wants to take the company, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad he didn't fire him. I don't think that, saying something bad should result in getting fired. I like that, the approach of like, look, you have to give somebody an opportunity to atone. Certainly you can't fire somebody for something they did that was like then reported in the media because it was reported in the media if he did it off air. Although, from a company standpoint, you could decide whether you want somebody on your staff who's yelling at, a younger staffer who's their colleague. But so I'm glad he wasn't fired for saying that, because I do think people should get opportunities to, learn from their mistakes. But I agree with you. I can't see how Don Lemon is consistent with the righting of the ship that Chris Licht seems to be wanting to do.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll continue to follow that, and we'll have more Rising in just a minute. Please stay tuned.